Episode number 16. What we should come out this week, talking about...
Basically, we're debunking science.
we're pretty much explaining why we think science isn't reliable for the most part. If you constantly sort of use science as your evidence to try and explain...
Where's your studies, bro?
Yeah. So pretty much the people who comment on our short form content asking for studies for our proof, this is sort of not our response, but you know what I mean,
We're basically letting you know that that's not valid. That's not a valid kind of counter argument. Do you know what I mean? And we'll break down why in this episode.
First thing we're going to speak about is the most relevant thing that's happened as of recent. So a few days ago, the US flipped their food pyramid upside down, and there's been loads of memes about South Park predicted this over 10 years ago. The food pyramid now, maybe we can pop it up on screen. Now the pyramid prioritizes high fat and protein and carbs that are not processed. Whereas the old pyramid, the bottom layer, the one that they said you should eat the most of, was things like bread and pasta and rice, minimally processed carbs, which isn't optimal for a human diet.
Maximally processed carbs.
Yeah.
That isn't optimal for
Yeah.
Yeah, because probably big corporations wanted to sell their cereals and their breads and their pastas and their all this other shit that they spend millions of pounds producing to the consumers, basically. So what ends up happening is if you get too married to science, you're always led astray, because say a lot of big corporations that fund a lot of scientific research, they want to put their bias onto the results of whatever is coming out so that they can sell their products, basically.
Because the people who own these or fund these science labs are the ones that own Kellogg's, sort of thing. Do you mean, like you said, there's a bias to it?
Exactly. So the old food pyramid was designed probably and funded by big corporations that had all these refined, super processed carbohydrates as their products, and they needed to sell them. So they made the food pyramid of, this is what you should eat the most of, then you should eat the least amount of meats and all this other shit. You know what I mean? I think it was fruit, veg, and then meat was like the smallest back in the day.
I think it was the top right of the old pyramid. It was meat and dairy in that tiny little corner, but that and below it was like fruit, vegetables, and then the bottom was bread, pasta, all that shit, cereal.
And now it's inverted, and now they're taking everything back, because
how the fuck do you flip it upside down? Like, we were saying that before, weren't we? Like even if
it's a joke. But if you, again, previous podcast, go watch it. If you listen to your soul and you knew what the answers were, my whole life I've been eating high calorie, high fat, high protein food my whole life, and you can't say I'm obese, can you? You know what I mean? Minimal carbs, especially them ultra processed shit fucking carbs that you get from supermarkets, But this is the thing though, the world is changing. We all have the internet. Everybody is getting more and more awake. If you live through COVID times and you're not privy to, I don't trust the government and big corporations and whatever else. If you're not at that level, then please turn our podcast off, because this isn't for you. Do you know what I mean? This is for the people who are a little bit more awake, who have actually a bit of common sense between the ears and think, you know what, I don't really trust the modern day mainstream narrative anymore, because look at all the shit that we've lived through over the last 5-6 years. You know what I mean? Complete bullshit.
Got your two eyes open, but you got your third eye open as well.
Fact.
If you're just walking around with your two physical eyes, then, like you said, this podcast isn't for you.
Exactly.
But like I was going to say before, it's not even as if like they've made a couple of amendments on that old pyramid. Like, they've literally completely flipped upside down. And what we were saying about, people asking for studies or references for certain claims, you can't be using, mainstream scientific or health bodies as proof, because look what they've done with the food pyramid. This is like a very small sort of
Example.
simple example. They've literally flipped the whole pyramid upside down just in a few years. So, people are gonna ask for, if you use the old food pyramid as a scientific reference, it's completely invalid now. And this pyramid that they've made, even though it's a lot better, there's still going to be changes over the next few years. You can't rely on these mainstream health organizations, because they chop and change the rules and what, because you said there's a underlying bias to their research and how they market certain things. So you can never trust these people, because at the end of the day, they don't have your health, what's the word? They don't prioritize your health. They're trying to make money, not make you healthy.
So basically, when you are looking at scientific research, the first thing that you should do is, who funded this research? That's the first question that you should ask, you know what I mean? And then that'll tell you a little bit about if this science is even correct or not,
Is it done in good faith or bad faith?
Exactly. And the thing is this, there's been a lot of examples in history of very good, amazing Nobel Prize winning scientists like Robert O. Becker getting defunded because he proven without a shadow of a doubt that EMFs are bad for you. You know what I mean? But big tech and big corp and Silicon Valley, they don't want you to fucking get that science out. You know what I mean? So they defunded his labs and basically tried to bury all of his work.
Career, shut down sort of thing.
Exactly. And then you lot are asking me, where's the scientific studies on EMF having a negative effect on health and this, that, the other? They ain't going to be any, is there? You know what I mean? Because these scientists that are actually doing these studies, they're not going to get published in any magazines. They're not going to get their science put out on big billboards and into mainstream media, you know what I mean? Because nobody wants you to know that type of shit, because otherwise, like I said, these big corporations would have to bend to our rules. They'd have to abide by nature's rules, and they don't want to do that. They'd rather extract from nature. They'd rather damage nature and sell us the byproduct of shit, basically.
Because there's no money in nature. When it's a free thinking, decentralized system, there's no money to be made. But like you were saying about the funding, if you use, like, the biggest one in the space at the moment is probably Andrew Huberman, isn't it? His lab in Stanford. Do you think if Andrew Huberman came out and said, like, listen, you should stop using iPhones, you need to stop eating this processed shit, you need to start blocking blue light, just exposed the health industry for what it is and how it tries to benefit or profit off of your naivety, do you really think his podcast would be so successful and he'd have so much funding going into his labs and his research? He wouldn't.
Sponsorships and all this other shit will go out the window, wouldn't it?
I swear, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he got sponsored by like a protein bar or some shit like that recently.
He's got his own protein bar.
Does he? Yeah, it is. Yeah.
No, you know what I mean? Or some sort of
affiliate
company has basically made him an affiliate and allowed him to make his own protein bar. Do you know what I mean? Type shit. As soon as I see shit like that, you're invalid.
Yeah, switch off.
Your opinion is invalid to me. I don't give a fuck who you are, because you're a cop out, you're a sellout, and
walk around with the t-shirt, the logo on your t-shirt, saying like, this is the reason why I'm healthy. You know what I mean? Don't want to listen to it. You're blocked, facts. You're banned from this podcast.
You're AI, you're artificial, you ain't artificial anymore. Yeah. You know what I mean? End of. So that's one of the reasons why science isn't really science anymore. Another reason why science isn't science anymore is because most of the studies that they do are under lab conditions and under blue light, which is artificial light, which basically changes the results of the studies. Because I'll give you an example. Say if you're trying to study the way that, say, I digest food. Well, if you put me in a lab, make me eat something, and I'm under blue light, then blue light already spikes my blood sugar levels.
Insulin.
It has a negative effect on so many other things, and then that's going to affect how I digest food. Do you know what I mean? If I'm surrounded by non-native EMF, if I'm surrounded by all these computers, laptops, all this other stuff, it basically, it opens up my blood-brain barrier. It opens up my gut as well, makes my gut more leaky. So that's going to affect the way that I digest food. But
I was going to say, it doesn't put you in the rest and digest.
it stimulates you.
Yeah.
Exactly. It stimulates my sympathetic nervous system. So as soon as I'm in nature, if you put me in the exact same study frame, say I'm digesting a piece of meat or whatever it is, but I'm outside, I'm grounded, and my top's off, I've got natural sunlight hitting my stomach, then that changes the whole results of whatever scientific study that you're doing, because I'm grounded. So all of the inflammation in my body is pretty much gone. As soon as the natural full spectrum sunlight hits my stomach, that changes the gut biome in my belly as well, and actually stimulates all of that. And then that's going to change. I'm going to digest food 10 times better outdoors than I am indoors. You know what I mean?
And the other thing is, we were saying about blue light being artificial. That doesn't take into account what time of day the study's done. So even if you're in blue light, it's still not, it's going to change the results of the study. But what if you're doing it at night time? When your body's not meant to be eating, as soon as the sun goes down, you shouldn't be eating, for example. So if you're doing that study, it's going to skew it even more. And then our whole scientific or nutritional or health framework that we get given as the public from these big health organisations is based off those, what's the word? Not corrupted studies, but misinformed studies, and not well conducted studies. So pretty much the whole sort of like foundation of mainstream health ideas is built upon that sort of shit. So
they're all flawed studies.
yeah, that's the way.
All of the lab conditions and the blue light and all this other stuff make most of the studies invalid straight away. Do you know what I mean? And I'll give you an example. This is why you have to start looking at, you have to open that third eye and actually start asking your soul what's right and what's wrong, and actually start thinking for yourself, and look at somebody like a Usain Bolt who eats Mackey's chicken nuggets on the morning of an Olympic race and then breaks the world record.
Yeah, Beijing 08 it was, I think.
Do you know what I'm saying? If I ate fucking chicken nuggets from McDonald's, fucking hell, my stomach could be in bits. Do you know what I mean? But because he's outdoors most of the time, he trains barefoot.
He grew up in one of the best environments possible in Jamaica, which used to be volcanic land. So there's still a lot of magnetic flux in the earth. Being grounded in that tropical climate, it's like his mitochondria and his engine is just like one of the best ever.
And he's dark as fuck, so he's got loads of melanin.
Yeah.
So the melanin, it actually helps you absorb and block out loads of radiation, loads of negativity. Do you know what I mean? So even if he was in the Olympic city or whatever the village that they stay in, surrounded by non-native EMF, he's way better off than most of the, say, white athletes who, they could eat chicken nuggets and they'd be fucked. Do you know what I mean? Because they're just not as resilient as black people. That's just the way it is. That's just science. You know what I mean?
Because his skin's dark as well. He absorbs more sunlight.
And that's why we tell all you lot, get your asses out in the sun, develop a base tan, and
even in the winter when it's cold, get your clothes off, get in the cold exposure, do cold showers, build that melanin, preserve that melanin internally.
Facts.
Sort of thing. But yeah, I would say, because Usain Bolt's skin is quite dark, he absorbs more sunlight. So to use the example again, people always say don't wear a black t-shirt or don't sit on a bench if it's black in the summer because it holds heat. It's the same with skin. He absorbs more power from the sun, and especially if you grew up in Jamaica, which used to be volcanic land, there'll be a lot of black sand. Growing up in that area, black sort of volcanic ash that's been like residue left over.
So he's super grounding basically, because the magnetic flux is a little bit stronger. So yeah,
he's the perfect example of like
he can break the rules
Yeah.
and still get away with it. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? Whereas other people can't. You know, if you're sat on your ass, blue light toxic, non-native EMF toxic, etc., then you get up and try and do a couch to 5k on the treadmill in a gym. You probably end up injuring yourself.
Past sunset, yeah.
You probably end up injuring yourself
I see,
because you ain't resilient. You know what I mean?
working in the gym, I see it. Especially now.
I see it all the time.
Now it's January. It's even worse. After Christmas, it's like they're even fatter. Coming into the gym, the sun is setting even earlier. Coming in the gym past sunset, getting on the treadmill to do 5k on an even surface where they can switch off, and it's just no good for you.
It doesn't work. You know what I mean? So hopefully this has given you a few things for you to think about. You know what I mean? Another example of big corporations taking advantage of things. Listen, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, all this other stuff, they have basically paid for their own organic certification on their products. You know, so the products aren't really organic when it comes to the actual practices of real organic regenerative farming. You know what I mean? They can just bend the rules because they have that, and that's what talks. Money talks. You know, so yeah, just want you guys to be aware of these things so that you can look at things with a different perspective and open your eyes, open your third eye, and not get basically
Taking advantage of.
Exactly.
Is that a good place to end?
Yeah.
Have we got any more to speak about?
That's enough free game for today, team. Yeah,
Nah, that'll do us.
that'll do us. Stay dangerous as always.
Subscribe. AskArtificial
All
at
of that.
gmail.com if you want to send questions in. You'll stay anonymous. And you know where to find the clips. All that, yeah. See you next week.